And next up, I'm very happy to introduce Ted Nelson. I'll just take a second to set up his machine. I'll get it on too. You can just start talking. No, but I have to move it up.
Well, okay. So I can't read what I was going to say since it's behind me. Does this on? Yeah. You can read it. We have been convinced, the world has been convinced by Xerox PARC and its diaspora that the purpose of computers is to simulate paper with all its decorations. Whereas the originator of electronic documents, Douglas Engelbart, was concerned about structure. Structure and forms of collaboration. Linkage, and not just the trivial one-way links of the web. And all of those disappeared with the sudden triumph of the Xerox PARC model called the modern GUI. I prefer to call it the PUI, or PARC User Interface, which essentially is a fig leaf over the operating system, which, like most fig leaves, prevents access. And it's also an iron jockstrap because it prevents anything which is not allowed within that interface. So that the computer was dumbed down at that time, and the Xerox PARC system was imitated by Apple and by Microsoft, and hence after by Linux, and so that's where everybody is right now. So their model of documents is the simulation of paper, rectangles, organizing things into rectangular presentations, and an obsession with the prettiness of lettering. Now, I love fonts. I designed my own font in college, but I believe that structure is far more important, just as the mind is more important than the hairdresser. Now here, this is the only working demo I have. Okay. This is the working demo I have. We paid the guy a lot of money for a cross-platform application and instead got a Windows-only demo, which we've been trying to get fixed for quite a while, but here it is. This is the kind of document I'm talking about. We're talking about parallelism of documents. Documents do not exist in isolation, yet we represent them in isolation. The doc format, the text format, the PDF are all by themselves. Where are the connections? We want to be able to see and follow the connections, and this is how I mean it. I'll worry about it. They can hear me. I can project. I can project.
No, that's the problem is that they're trying to record it, so you really do need the microphones.
I don't believe you, but oh, all right. Here we have a flight of documents visibly connected. Here are the connections when they're stretched like rubber bands, and here are the connections when we see them up close. So we have 2 pages. This is only one possible visualization. You see, along with the Xerox PARC propaganda of font representation of the costume party of pretty typefaces, came the phrase WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Meaning literally, what you see is what you get when you print it out. Yes, friends, this phrase WYSIWYG is propaganda for believing that that the purpose of documents is to create a paper simulation. Whereas if we have deeper structure that can't be printed on paper, our slogan is WYSIWYNK, what you see is what you never could. So this is only one visualization. In this particular visualization, we have two pages here. On the left, we see something I wrote for this occasion, and on the right, we see the origin of this quotation, because every quotation should be visibly and immediately connectable to its source. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and that is from the King James Bible translation. Go down to the next quotation, Adam and Lilith immediately began to fight, and that is from the alphabet of Ben Sira. And as we step through the successive connections, and we have both links and transclusions here, I don't have time to explain, we see the successive connections, the pages successively connected, leaping up to be next to wherever they should be next to. Now that is the essence of what I'm talking about, and I'll go on from there. So I don't even have access to the script. Yeah, well, I don't want them to see that. So, okay. Right. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So they don't see nothing. All right, fine. So parallel pages. That's what I'm here to talk about. The representation, the visible representation of parallelizable structure of every kind. Parallel pages for representing parallel content. For example, history. What was happening in Germany? What was happening in England? What was happening in South America at the same time? Should be not in successive chapters. They should be in parallel pages. Comments should be on the side. Footnotes should be on the side. There is intrinsic parallelism of structure. There is intrinsic parallelism of content. And so these should be corresponding parts of documents. Outlines should be on the side. For programming, you should have the specs next to the code, next to the bug list, and be able to traverse each of these steps. Because as I showed you, the parallel connection is also a bridge for the reader or next author to move between the successive representations. As a workflow system, you see, Xerox PARC gave us the pretty pages, but where do we put the content that hasn't gone on them yet? And where do we put the stuff we might use and think might be out but might not be? And where do we put the comments that may go somewhere but we're not sure? They didn't leave us any place to put those, except, of course, in the hierarchical directories in other paper representations. And they gave us that magnificent structure, the so-called clipboard. This is a, quote, metaphor. You see, the clipboard, where you do your Control X and Control V and Control whatever. The clipboard is just like any physical clipboard, except you can't see it. It only holds one object, and whatever you put on it destroys the previous object. Now, in every other respect, it resembles a physical clipboard, except there aren't any other respects. And the term clipboard is simply a propaganda term to make people accept this abominable mechanism, this tiny keyhole for the management of content, which destroys 1 million objects every day as people answer the phone and forget what they've got stored on it. And the person responsible for this misnomer is my friend Larry Tesler, because unfortunately, the people at Xerox PARC were idealists too. They just had a very shallow notion of human potentiality. Doug Engelbart had a great notion of human potentiality. He believed that people could expand, to human understanding and ability to work could be expanded exponentially. Well, I'm much more cynical, but I believe it could be a lot smarter than our current tools are making us. So we need workflow with version management. We need versions, parallel, side by side to see the differences. We need workflow for with a forkable undo chain. We need workflow for collaborative environments. We need to keep track of who wrote which part and when. And where does that show up? Well, you know, Microsoft Word has these little thingies for doing that. That's enough for most lawyers, right? But giving us decent text tools with access to the original content, access to the original sources of everything, access to the parallelisms intrinsic in the documents we create, because the kinds of documents I'm trying to create will be intrinsically parallel. I don't want to write any other kind of document ever, and it makes me sick every day to have to use today's tools. And believe me, I've been on this long enough to be much angrier than I look. So the simple structure is A, indirect documents, meaning that a document is represented by a list of pieces to bring in. B, this is then overlaid with xanalinks. I use that term only to make it absolutely clear we're not talking about web links. A xanalink is a multifaceted connector of arbitrary type. And the xanalinks are published separately so that they may be reused in other documents. I'll just keep it simple. Why do I keep at this? A, because I still believe in the world I first imagined. B, I believe I will have the last laugh and hope to live long enough for it when people finally come to understand in an integrated view the true nature of thought, the true nature of writing, the true nature of the writing process, the true nature of ongoing work, which goes on and on and on and on in unfinished and partial structures, the true nature of collaboration, the true nature of publication, the true nature of posterity, and thus the true and destined nature of documents. Thank you very much.
Questions? We start.
Mr. Sir, we meet at last. You finally got to hear it.
All right. Well, first of all, I love the passion that's still there. You know, the old farts are still farting. I think this is cool. That includes me. First of all, an interesting issue arises. Everybody here knows what a hyperlink is. Well, I'm sorry, you know what a URL is. Do you know how fragile those URLs are? 10 years or 100 years or maybe tomorrow, they won't resolve. And so one element that is needed in your vision is some way of identifying things with identifiers that are permanent, that never change, that are always resolvable. And that's one very big missing part of the current World Wide Web. It's a very fragile environment. So I think, Ted, you'd agree with that. The other thing which I find both appealing and also scary, Ted, is that the complex structure that you've described is, sir?
Simple structure.
Yeah, well, it's.
Simpler than HTML.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but it's still a fairly complex structure to maintain all the links and everything else. And this is not a criticism. It's only an observation that we will have to figure out how we make sure we can still preserve all those references as we move bodies of content around.
And stabilize the
Yeah.
content as well.
Amen. The next issue has to do with this fixation on print. It drives me crazy. There was a bitter argument at Xerox PARC, which continues today. The argument went this way. One side said, I'm the author, I should control how this looks, and you can't change it. The other guy said, no, I'm the recipient. I'm going to be the one that is responsible for adjusting the presentation of this object, depending on what resolution I have, how much room I have on the screen, and so on and so forth. Where do you end up on that one?
I am a dualist. I hold by a two-God system. The God, the author, has the right to say exactly how he wants it to look, and God, the reader, can do any damn thing he wants with it. So the integrity of the original is sacrosanct, provided it is kept as the original. But when I buy a book, I can tear up the pages and throw the book across the room, and I want to be able to rearrange the damn text on. My eyes can hardly read half of the stuff that's on the screen. I'm over whatever, and you've got, there's no provision made in most web pages and nor on the Apple operating system for people with eyes below a certain difficulty.
Questions? Timothy?
You reduced the you reduced the revered practice of type design to little more than hairdressing. I wondered, therefore, if the two questions. The first one is, do you believe that the design of letter shapes can carry no meaning or links? And would you be content to live in a world with just one typeface? And if so, which would it be?
I would far rather live in a world with one typeface and the deep structure I've mentioned than live with all the pretty fonts we have now. However, I do like the fonts, but I see them as whipped cream that should be optional after we have decent structure.
Yep, can you stand up and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Scarlett. Is this like a personal project, or have you proposed this idea to, say, Apple or Microsoft?
Duck before you throw something at you.
It began as my personal project. I've had a number of collaborators, over 100 collaborators over the last 53 years on this project as it went from boom to bust to boom to bust in stories you need not hear. Bill Gates and I go way back. I won't discuss it. He was very nice to me, and I think I was less nice to him because he didn't understand how revolted I was by some of the things that he was proud of. And Apple, of course, is impregnable. I had one encounter with Steve Jobs, and it was polite, but there's no way that Steve and I could be in the same room. To be able to read any of those things in a later historical context requires considerable exposition, which could be best done in parallel. B, what I'm revolting against is structure dictated, as it were, by the printing presses of today. And the printing presses of yesterday generated Joyce and Cortázar, and the printing presses of today constrain us in invisible ways we do not see. So it is that structure rather than the precise literary stuff. Of course, I'm interested in it, but that is not the focus of mine.
I always got a sense that both of them were, as if they both would have loved to have left something else.
Yes, I want to give them what they really wanted.
They wrote up to the age of writing in the sense of the ones.
Yes, so
Can you
undoubtedly.
heard that? Can you just repeat that they wrote to the edge of writing as it was then? I just your comment there that they wrote up to Joyce and so forth. They wrote up to the edge of writing. I think is a very interesting theme for today. I think also reflects very much on Ted's work of giving further opportunities for both writing and reading.
And I like to think that my structure, when I say mine, the one I want everyone to have, that the structure with which I'm obsessed is the natural and determinate structure which every fine writer would want.
Hi, I'm Louise and I'm from an organisation called Forum for the Future. I'm really excited about the vision you're portraying, and I just wondered what your thoughts are on what's the role of the next generation and many of the people that are sat in this room in actually bringing it to life.
Send money. We are thinking of starting a Kickstarter or the like campaign about this time. Right now, we're on the edge of putting the new code, which has been what I just showed you was written in idiosyncratic C++. It has been finally translated into Python. We hope to put it out under a double GPL, meaning that there'll be a version everybody can have open source, and we'll retain certain business rights which do not interfere with the open source. And when that will happen, I do not know, because the code is still such a mess. But my boys in Connecticut finally managed, after 5 years, to get it transcoded from the C++. And it still doesn't look great, but we hope to have it in a usable form, quote, real soon now.
One more question. Yep. Sorry, you put your hand up first in the back.
Lendl from Goldsmiths. I'll speak louder. So I'm just wondering if you have any problems with I guess, screen presentation as inhibiting parallel processing as you're describing? Because I mean, it is a single plane.
Lovely question. Do I have any problem with screen presentation? First of all, when I got out of college, I thought I was a filmmaker. And that's how I came into the computer business. I said, oh, you can put screens on them. I can do that. And thought it would be a walk in the park, especially when the CIA said they were going to back me right away. But that fell apart. Screens, A, are very fundamental, and B, are there. I do not believe in wishing for new hardware, because that way lies madness. Just getting the software to work on what you have is the best. And anyhow, a good movie maker can figure out how to use the screens to best advantage with all kinds of interaction. By the way, my fundamental tenet is that software is a branch of cinema, and as a filmmaker. And a lot of the technical guys don't like to hear that. But what is a movie but events on a screen that affect the heart and mind of the viewer? What is interactive software but events on the screen that affect the heart and mind of the viewer, user, and interact and have consequences? So my goodness, what have we taken away from movies? Nothing. We've added that other stuff. But what is paramount or universal but the need for putting the effects on the screen in a way that people can feel and understand, which most techies don't know how to do. You have to have a director. And that is why most software is so bad, because the parts are delegated. No one is in charge. And that is why Apple's interactions were so much better, because Apple had a director with absolute control in very much the same way that a movie director has. And Steve Jobs was a director, and he had taste and judgment to match his power. Nowhere else in the computer field do I see that, certainly not at Google. As Gmail gets worse and worse. But my point is that the unification and clarification of what the user does are paramount. And adding pieces to an already confused object does not improve it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.